As the Arizona Coyotes continue to navigate through this offseason, we're going to talk about a wish list for the Arizona Coyotes. What are some trades that we want to see the Arizona Coyotes try to make as they get ready through the rest of this offseason as we approach the draft and free agency period in only a few weeks from now? We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlok right beside me. On today's episode of Locked On Coyotes, we want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, which does mean we will never, ever have a paywall. Well, we got a good episode for you coming up on today's episode. We're going to talk about an off-season wish list for this episode. We're going to talk about potential trades we might want to see the Arizona Coyotes make. It may not be like specific. Let's target this player. But in this case, Carl, we'd be like, all right, what are some of the things that kind of moves you want to see the Coyotes make as we approach? Again, like we said, we approach the draft and free agency.
Yeah, and the Coyotes definitely have a lot of needs. They're going to see another offseason with a lot of, roster turnover. So there is quite a few things that, are going to be on Bill Armstrong's shopping list. Not sure if they're going to be, trades. Not sure if they're going to be free agent signings. I guess it all kind of depends on, who's available, who wants to come to Arizona because, being in the second year of a rebuild in a college arena, not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean it'll be a mix of everything. It'll be a mix of trades and free agency, and on acquiring the wish list for today. We're going to go specifics into trades, right? And let's start with the first, and this one's a little bit more specific, kind of, but more of and we mentioned it last week on last week's episode, but we can again kind of go more, talk about this again, and that's the trading of Jacob Chychrun and like what the Coyotes are going to want to get. We've mentioned it on last week's episode, right? We want a roster player, a pretty decent roster player, like let's say maybe someone that can fill the young defenseman role because you're going to be losing a solid young defenseman. So you want something to fill that role. A first round draft pick and 2 high-end prospects.
Yeah.
At least.
I didn't realize it was 2 high-end prospects.
Let's take 2 high-end prospects.
But yeah, two high-end prospects, sure. That is definitely the asking price for Jacob Chychrun. I just finished writing the player report card for Jacob Chychrun on 5 for Howling, and it was good to kind of like go back and look at his season more in depth. And I do think he's going to be an attractive target still if the Coyotes are still shopping him. He really he took a little bit to get going. But after a couple games from returning from injury or, to start the season, he was really clicking pretty well. So I think there's going to be interest. Who do you think, you mentioned a young defenseman as the roster player. I was kind of thinking maybe a goalie as a roster player just because, Vejmelka, something we've talked about before, he needs to have someone who is able to step in for games. He's not ready to be a starter. He's more of like a 1A, 1B type of player. At least last season, that was it. And I doubt we're going to see Prosvetov up next season. So a goalie definitely seems like it'd be high on the list. And probably a good thing for Bill Armstrong to pick up.
And I'm glad you mentioned goalie too, because another potential one. Now I'm not sure what what a scenario like this would look like, but I do know we saw recently, and I want to talk with the host of this show more in depth about it. So we'll get that. But Sergei Bobrovsky has been rumored to have been on the block, and obviously the Coyotes they would not want to take the entire $10 million contract value of that. That's way too much.
Hmm.
If they take, they retain half, get half of that contract, let Florida retain it, and then you're like, all right, give us two, like in this case, yes, two high end prospects and a high end and a good draft pick to compensate for that, because that's a big thing we're taking on in addition to you for Jacob Chychrun. Like,
Yeah. The Bobrovsky deal though, it seems so separate than a
yeah,
potential Chychrun deal, just because like that is going to be like the Coyotes need to get a lot to take Bobrovsky. That contract is ridiculous. The term is ridiculous.
I mean, I can
Like
see it two separate transactions, but there's going to be there could be something like that
yeah,
in this case.
definitely. And it's not really unforeseen. Like I could see a team like the Coyotes like making a massive deal for something like that. Like I think the Oliver Ekman Larson, Connor Garland for three veterans and a seventh overall pick. That is definitely a
Ninth,
big move, or ninth overall. Sorry. Um,
that was big.
I
Yeah,
w- I will say this about Bobrovsky. I'm looking at Sport Track or Spot Track right now. Currently has a no movement clause, so he would need to waive that. Uh, He's got no movement for 2 more years, and then a modified no trade clause, 16 teams. So, you know, does he want to necessarily go to the Coyotes? That is, you know,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Those are
I,
things we have to
I
consider, right? But it's hard to put it in that case, But like we said, is like for a potential Chychrun deal or acquisition of a goalie or whatever for the Coyotes, like there are a million moving parts to that one to a as a big deal like this, right? We
yeah,
can't just throw something out there and call it a day,
yeah.
which a lot of people like to do. They like this is like, hey, we like this. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Yeah, like especially if that deal happened, if the two were included, that would just be like just hours of GMs like nailing things out, like just being like, fine, take an extra seventh round pick. We need to make something work. I could see it happening, but
I
I
mean, in
don't
this
really.
case, like if you like, obviously, what you're getting isn't there isn't as extra value to it. But in this case, the like like if you do it by quote money value, is the money value would be almost equal.
Yeah. And I will say, like, Bobrovsky had a pretty good bounce back year this year. Finished with a 913 save percentage, 2.67 goals against.
Hmm.
Uh, he had a couple, rough seasons to start, but he's looking pretty good. But yeah, I don't know what the Panthers were thinking when they signed him to that deal. Like, I think we all, like, collectively as the hockey watching community were like, that's bad. I don't know why you guys are doing this. You have Spencer Knight. Do you not trust him, or what? Why are you locking in this goalie for so much money at so much term? Uh, I think
Like he
it may
was a
have,
solid goalie when he was getting ready to leave Columbus, and
yeah.
he was getting a lot of value towards there. The only thing I'll say about that is Florida severely overvalued him. I don't think anyone was going to match that, and that's why, like, it's like, which is why he ended up going there, obviously.
And I do think at the time people were talking about like him and Panarin going together, and
Hmm.
maybe that was kind of the thought process. I don't know. Just 7 years, 10 million for a goalie, and I mean, yeah, he's a good goalie. I'm not gonna give him like any doubt to that. Former Vezina winner, but he's also my age. He was born 2 months after me, and sure, goalies can last a long time. We're looking at Mike Smith. He's in his 40s, but also look how Mike Smith played in his 40s. You know, definitely not a consistently good goaltender.
Absolutely. We still got more to get to on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We are going to take a look at a couple more trades that potential trades that we might want to see the Arizona Coyotes make as we approach the rest of the off season, the draft, and the free agency period. All that and more in just a moment. But first, turn to Carl for a quick word.
So I have a message from our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. You can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the Stanley Cup final, Major League Baseball, and of course, fighting news from MMA and UFC right down to boxing. Were you watching 2 days ago, the first matchup against the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Colorado Avalanche? Did you bet the over for that match? Because you probably should have. Uh, but you can get all of that information and more at Bet Online, because Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
So we have an important favor to ask you guys. We put together a survey so we can learn more about the podcast like listeners like you, excuse me, and that make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. Take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Once again, lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks again for your help. All right, so let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes. We're talking off-season wish list trades edition for the Arizona Coyotes as we approach the draft and free agency period within only a few weeks from now. And Carl, I think one thing that we've been talking about when we've had like draft experts and things on and people on, it's like, is Bill Armstrong is doing something special with acquiring like, a bajillion draft picks this year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's see him do more.
More draft picks, or do you want him to use those draft picks for trading purposes?
A mix of both. There's
Okay.
like, and I think that's the thing is like he's already utilized one of those picks um, for for a trade during the last trade deadline, right?
Yes.
And it showed the workout. He can do something like that to try to get some potential roster players out of it, but also try to maybe even upgrade. Let's say some picks are like later in the second round. Like, all right, let's see if we can bundle those and move up a little bit more. Just because if there's a player that we like that we want to draft,
Yeah.
because we talked about it, there are some players that might just fall down to that level. It's like, oh, this player is still available at 37. Let's take him.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talked about with Jacob Chychrun. I think the team like moved up to draft him, and they're like, yeah, we'll take our later first round pick and a second, and we'll jump up like a couple spots. I could very easily see the Coyotes do something like that.
Wasn't the Chychrun trade the Datsuk trade? The Chychrun draft
Oh
pick?
yeah, yeah. Who am I thinking of? Who do the Coyotes move up to draft? I'm not sure. But definitely something you can do. Like
Yeah.
the Coyotes have two like kind of like later first round picks. Like combine that and a second, you got a middle round pick. Especially because like, you know, the team, they may not think that their guy is going to be available at what, 32, 31. Yeah, I could definitely see a move like that. Like there's so many picks, there's so many possibilities. Like he could just do whatever he wants with those.
Plus, like if he really wants to, like he can bundle something to get back into the first round again and get a fourth first round draft pick.
Yeah, I don't really know if that's necessary
No,
though.
it's not because of what we talked about, right? Like
Yeah.
we had Will Scout on, yesterday, and once again, thanks for Will for coming on. That was a great episode. Hope you guys liked that. And from and he said the kind of the same theme that everyone else is saying is like once you get past the first few picks, it's just a massive scatter map, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it's like the person who can be like drafted seventh could end up be the person that gets drafted like you know 32nd. Like who knows?
It definitely could. Um, I do think that the team has enough holes though that they should probably use maybe at least one to get a roster player.
Yes.
Um, I'm thinking just because like of what I don't know if the team is going to be re-signing Anton Stroman, but I think the team definitely needs a veteran defenseman. Like you were talking about, like a younger one, more like about to enter their prime. I think the team needs veterans, like especially with what we saw with the Roadrunners, like just so many Roadrunners. You need a guy who's been there before. Maybe they're a little bit physical, provide a little bit of offense. Uh, the Strawman comparison is not that great because the team was paid to take Strawman, and they were also given Kolyachonok. But something like that. Maybe get like a player who's better than Strawman. Although I think we both agreed that he had a pretty solid season.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One thing too that can definitely be like a potential um addition too is uh the idea that the coyote, because we talked about the Coyotes acquiring salary just for the case that they're just acquiring, to weaponizing their cap, is what we've been calling it, right?
Hmm.
And lately it's been um used to get them draft picks, but I think we're getting close to a market in which uh a player you can get like you can get players involved with that
Yeah,
with stuff like that. And I know this was not package deal in the more recently, but more of like reverse in reverse like team for team. But I mean, come on, like let's. I mean, I like when we're talking trades, I gotta have to mention the most recent trade that happened that got everyone scratching their head with Shea Weber going over to the Vegas for a Dadonov. But like, okay.
yeah, that was an interesting one. Everyone thought the Coyotes were going to be involved with that. No, Vegas Golden Knights.
I know. I like with the moment I saw the thing beforehand, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Shea Weber's contract's on the move," and I'm like, Bill Armstrong, what did you do? What did you do?" And then I said, "It says Golden Knights." Like, wait, what?
Honestly, I think if Bill Armstrong had been involved in that trade, he would have gotten a better return.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He would have done something really fun.
Yeah, because I don't necessarily think the Vegas Golden Knights got a great return for that either.
I mean, because
Like they,
they did it for a different reason.
yeah,
They did it to dump salary, right? Because they did not want Dodonov contract, and they put Shea Weber on the LTIR. Like for the Coyotes' purpose, it'd be like we have a lot of cap space. We'll make some room.
yeah. It's I'm glad that Vegas was finally able to make that move that they completely whiffed on last time. It was really fun. Uh, Good for them. The Ducks had a great response on Twitter where they commented, "Are you sure?" Uh,
I love it.
yeah, but yeah, I think the team could definitely do something like that. The first time the Coyotes weaponized their cap was during uh, the Don Maloney era, where they acquired Nicholas Grossman for
Hmm.
I forget who it was from Philadelphia, but um, take a cap hit, get Grossman. Like they could definitely do something like that. I'm not really sure.
Plus, there
Like,
was also the Hossa and Datsuk deals. But
yeah, yeah, but I'm not really sure. Kind of like what teams are looking to dump, but there's always a team looking to dump salary.
I mean, if you look at the cap table, right? You have Vegas is still technically over the projected cap. Tampa Bay is over the projected cap. Montreal, because of that trade, now they're technically under. Boston's right under. Like there are a lot of teams that are right hidden right towards the top. That they like. All right, we need some space. Florida again is one of those people with space, and we talked about that one earlier.
Yeah,
On a situation like that, but
yeah, I'd like to see them like take something from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Maybe like a solid prospect. Um, Maybe something from like the Colorado Avalanche. Just keep taking from those teams who, you know, probably can't necessarily afford to resign all of their players.
what's better, what the Coyotes are doing with weaponizing the cap this time around is instead of acquiring dead cap, they're actually just acquiring overpaid players.
Yeah, and I do hope that Bill Armstrong continues his trend of like not too long of term for
Like
the overpaid
one, two,
players.
like 2 years average. Let's say 3 years at the max left. Like
Yeah, I think Brian Little has how many years left on his deal?
Brian Little has 2 years left.
Okay, so not bad, not bad. Um, and then like previously, what it was Shane Gostisbehere had 2 years left on his deal, 1 year
Yes.
now. What do you think about Gostisbehere? Uh, the team, like this is something we've brought up before. Like the team got paid to take him. Do they sell him now and get like a double deal like they did with Wedgwood?
Um, that's definitely possible. Um, although I don't know about doing that now. Like, I mean, I'll put it this way: if someone is, opening the phone line to GM Armstrong during the draft and offers something that's absolutely worth it, like you don't say no to a deal that you essentially of a player you got for free and they're offering you a lot for it.
Yeah,
You just don't say no to that. So yeah, you would take that deal. Although the Coyotes just we talked about it, they don't have a lot defensively on their defense. So like you don't want to you don't want to lose much more.
yeah. Especially because like any kind of like removal of a defensive player, it's gonna lead to potentially rushing one of your defensive
Mm-hmm.
prospects, which the team absolutely does not want to do. I think they did it somewhat last year, and they probably wouldn't do that you know if they could play things again. They probably would have acquired more like veteran players. Um, but like I said, if you can get something for him, and it's a like one of those deals you can't turn down, can't turn it down.
Yeah, it'd just be really hard to see the Coyotes part ways with both Chychrun and Got Despair
Yeah,
in the offseason. Like I just can't see that happening.
yeah, because then like who's left? Like,
Like on the cap table shows among active defensemen Dyson Mayo, JJ Mosier, Victor Soderstrom, Koyachonik, and
uh,
then three.
Timmins would be
Timmins
back.
would be hopefully back. Yeah, Cam Dineen's a RFA, um, and maybe you re-sign Strawman. Like, but that's still you still have some uh, open left. You don't really have you still need to fill some gaps there. Like,
Yeah.
and that's
Uh,
and again that's saying because you don't want like to rush certain players. So like,
yeah. I mean, we also need to talk about because it's not really been addressed. The team is going to need to restock their forwards as well because you have Phil Kessel leaving, Anton Roussel, Jay Beagle, who else? Lad's around for one more year. Well,
Galchenyuk.
Galchenyuk, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I'm not sure if he's sticking around. Uh, who else came over in the Vancouver trade? There was three, right?
It was
Roussel.
Erickson, Beagle,
Erickson.
and
Yeah, Erickson's going. So yeah, and I do think the team also like is going to want to get some veteran forwards as well. Whether that be like
Mhm.
actual skilled veterans, like like a Castle who can provide some offense, or just kind of like calorie dump. I'm sure that they don't want to rush any of their forwards either. Like they don't need Carcone coming up. They don't need Ben McCartney coming up just yet. Like those players still need time to develop, and you don't want to rush them into a year that we both know is going to be bad.
Yeah, you exactly. Like this is like, it's gonna be in their tank year, right? You're gonna want. They're gonna try to probably go for first overall again,
Yeah.
and it's not gonna be fun. Um, but it's a necessary part of the rebuild. Um, so for that, you don't field grade A players, but you field players who at least can put on a competition show, right? Something that at least looks like you're trying.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that they're players who are going to be good in the room, who instill like even if the team's not winning, who like instill like a good culture, like especially for the younger players who are going to still be on there. Like you don't want, you know, let's say you get Dylan Gunther coming in at the very end of the year because season ends early. I don't see that being the case. I think Gunther is going to play longer than the Coyotes next year.
Right.
Um, but like, let's say he does, like you don't want him to just be going into a locker room full of like people who have completely given up on anything. That's not a good experience. So yeah, I think that character players is definitely going to be a key thing for the Coyotes. And luckily, like teams tend to overpay character guys, so like they should be able to hopefully get some.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just looking at like uh trade bait tracker to see like who are some names of potentially someone um some people to get, and there are quite a decent amount of goaltenders that are actually on this list.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Alexander Gorgiev is on that list. John Gibson is on that list,
Gibson.
and Semyon Varlamov is on this list.
I don't think the Coyotes go for Gibson.
No, they don't go for Gibson. Maybe is Varlamov, older veteran.
Maybe. Uh, maybe. I'm not sure about that one. How was his last season? He was in New York, right, with the
Yeah,
Islanders.
yeah, he was. Let me see his stats from recently. Um, he was let's see, 31 games played, 10-17 with a um 978 save percentage. Is that right? No, 900 saves. 911. I was like, that's too much. No, 911 save percentage.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah.
And again,
Uh,
he's on the older side. Of he's 34.
uh,
So
free agent or what's his contract like?
um,
Well, you said trade, so he's got a
yeah, he's
contract.
a trade target. Let me see what his salary looks like. He has uh, one more year at a $5 million cap hit with a modified no trade clause.
Honestly, that seems like a Coyotes move. Like 1 year left.
Yes, that's now that I saw the contract, I'm just like, you know what? That's a Coyotes move. That's definitely a Coyotes move.
Yeah, although I will say the problem is like, do you get Lou Lamoriello to pay to take a player away?
um, Andrew Ladd.
True, very true. Uh, so there is precedent, Your Honor.
That would be an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, the Coyotes have a lot of needs, and I think trading is going to be like a big part of it because it's going to come with other aspects of it, and
Hmm.
it's all going to depend on like a lot of these players we're talking about have no trade clause, no movement clause. Do they waive it for Arizona? Let's see.
Yeah, we will have to see. It's a lot of questions that we'll have to ask. But that's gonna be it for this trade portion of our off-season wish list. We're gonna go through more as we get closer to the draft and free agency. We're gonna talk about free agents and just and also like get more into specifics of what we want out of certain position groups. We'll get to those as we get closer. But if you like what you heard this one, once again, don't leave a review. If you are on Apple Podcast, leave us a 5 stars. We really appreciate it if you would do. Like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlok is Carl Pavlok FFH. Interact with us, ask the question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. And as a little teaser for you guys next week, we got a lot of good stuff for you coming up. We're going to have more interviews with lots of different guests from all over the place. As again, we have a lot of things to get to, right? We got to talk more prospects. We got to talk more other drafts. We got to talk just Coyotes off season, anything as we get closer to the rest of the off season. Anyways, that's it for today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy and cool out there because it is really getting hot out there. And don't forget to howl on.